You have fire in your gut? Okay, we're here for a reason, to win games. So if you didn't have that fire in your gut, you better light the fire pretty fast.
And welcome back to the latest and greatest episode of the 7 Points Podcast. My name is Jayden May, joined as always by my co-host Quentin Crisco as we continue to break down divisions in the NFL. Joined today by a very special guest to help us talk about the Cardinals, Mr. Marcos Labrada, Pancake Soul, as you might find him on X and other platforms. Where can people find you, Marcos?
At Pancake Soul, and that's pretty much it because I don't really have any other social medias other than my Twitter or my X account.
Heck yeah, X, the everything app. It's all happening on X.
And Marcos, are you still doing any podcasts?
I'm doing the Redbird Reboot with my co-host Blake Murphy, and we actually have been talking about like maybe expanding to something, a bigger venture with another of our friends. His name is Joe Camo. He runs the Cardinal Rule. So we're excited to see what's gonna move forward with that. But for the meantime, that's where you'll find me at the Redbird Reboot podcast.
Redbird Reboot podcast. Found it on all platforms. All right. We talking Dirty Birds?
They're all Dirty Birds. Arizona Cardinals. I mean, I think the place to start with them, it has to be Kyler Murray. So, like, Marcos, where does Kyler Murray sit with the fan base? Where do you sit with Kyler Murray? And, like, what is kind of your expectations for him going into this? Was this the second year coming off the torn ACL? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was like 2 years ago. So in 2023 is when he tore his ACL. 2024 was his full season following, and this is going to be his second season from that. So that's correct. So where the fan base stands is kind of like awkward and weird because for the most part, he had most of the fan base backing him up. And then as years go on, he's having less and less of that fan base. Some people are just trying to question whether or not he can even go on a full season, and whether or not, even if he goes on a full season, if he's the quarterback for the Cardinals to be able to transcend him past the first round of the playoffs and whatnot. Because we're thinking big picture this year. We're thinking at the very least with this squad, we should be able to make the playoffs. But how far are we going to make it into the playoffs is our question. And as you know, you need like a quarterback that's kind of, the type of quarterback that is either going to be mistake-free or he's going to be elite and he's going to carry your team. And for the most part, Kyler Murray has been neither of those consistently. So where he stands with me is that this is a make it or break it year, as with a lot of other fans in the Cardinals community. But I think I really don't think they're going to get rid of him or move off of him even after this year. I think he's long-term plans for this organization, at least for the staff.
One question I have regarding Kyler Murray is it's really about the true Drew Petzing offense, right? And it seems like such a run-centric offense to me on the outside. And how does that kind of impact Kyler Murray? Have they, and I'm not too sure, I didn't look up the data on this. Were they asking him to do more under center stuff? And how do you think that might be impacting his play style? And like kind of how does he fit in the Drew Petzing offense going forward, do you think?
Well, I think that's what fans were clamoring for at the beginning. And now that they've seen more of this offense with Kyler Murray, they're thinking to themselves, why aren't they passing the ball down the field? Why aren't they throwing more shots down the field? It's as simple as like, hey, you guys wanted a pro-style offense, and a pro-style offense involves I formations. It involves having like a tight end be your move tight end or be your tight end who's going to be your front blocker, which is why they got themselves a couple blocking tight ends in the last 2 years that were like really prevalent and being able to do that. Yeah, Tip Raymond being the most prevalent one. The main target of this offense is going to be your big blanket, your safety blanket, which is Trey McBride, and your main X receiver on the outside, who had to be a big body receiver, was Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, people will say that he had a bad or a down season for a rookie. He had himself he had himself an above average to a good season for a rookie. He didn't light up the scoreboard. People were thinking he was supposed to get like 1,400 yards in his offense. I told people, temper your expectations because that's not going to be his first year in the offense. Expect him to have like 700 to 800 plus yards, but watch for the touchdowns because that's where he's going to be, very crucial to this offense. And that's exactly what he was to the Cardinals offense, a big body who can catch touchdowns when Trey McBride gets us down to the end zone. You get it to your big body, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Trey McBride didn't catch on the touchdown.
Like he went so long that people were just trying to get that first touchdown out of the way. And I remember they had a play design for him. I believe it was against the Seahawks where they were trying to do this little scoop jump off or where it was, and it just didn't play out.
Like 2 plays in a row.
Yeah, they just gave up on it and just handed it off to James Conner after that. And I was like, yeah, that's sad, man. That's sad.
Now, as you got into the weapons there a little bit, I mean, how do you feel about the Cardinals wide receiver room, and where do you kind of see that sitting currently outside of MHJ?
I like Michael
Wilson
right here. Yeah, Michael Wilson. There we go. I like Michael Wilson as a secondary option. I think he could be one of those type of wide receivers that on a good given night, he could have like 70 to 80 yards, maybe even 100 something yards receiving. Because what I liked about him, he wasn't the typical like Steve Keim wide receiver that was like small, fast, not very good hands, or maybe good hands. It depends who you're looking at. If you're looking at Hollywood,
Arizona Cardinals and the Baltimore Ravens were in an arm race for those guys.
It seemed like they thought, you know what, this offense needs more speed. And I thought to myself, you have about 3 players that run like 4.3, but they're 5'11" or under. Like, do you really think this offense needs any more like speedsters? No, you need size in this offense. So obviously after Steve Keim was let go, you brought in Monty Ossenfort. Monty Ossenfort knew right off the bat, we're going to run this offense differently. I'm going to bring in an offensive coordinator who's going to run a more pro-style offense. We need big bodies for Kyler Murray. That's what's going to help him out. And it did to a certain degree, but as you'll see later on, there's a lot of plays that he does leave on the field, like a lot of meat on the bone.
Yeah, and looking at this offense and this graphic that Mr. Q put together for us so wonderfully. He's such a peach. Are we gonna give him a little bit of flack for not listing Kyler Murray as a blue chip player? I mean, what are we doing here?
It's not entirely like, so people would get mad if I said, you know what,
He's the greatest high school quarterback of all time. At the very least, he's a blue chip.
If you're saying blue chip from high school to college and then being drafted after that, yes. But in the pros,
I'm a Kyler guy.
You're a Kyler guy. And the pros, I wouldn't exactly put that on him unless he was to have himself a Pro Bowl type of season. Now people will say he has the ability to do that. Yeah, he has the ability to be an all-pro. The problem is his consistency hasn't been there. He hasn't done it for a full season. That's where my problems lie. Teams figure out how to defend him somewhere between 6 to 7 games in. They know what he's going to do. They know what they need to defend. And after that, they're going to make him change his game. And a lot of times he just doesn't adapt to that. People were saying that was Cliff Kingsbury. And I was like, no, that's Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is the one who's not seeing the entirety of the field. Kyler Murray is not making those plays that he needs to when you need to keep the drive going, because he became one of the quarterbacks that you definitely didn't want to blitz in his first 3 years to now, if you blitz him, he's one of the worst when it comes to like quarterback rating or passer rating against the blitz.
So I went back and forth on the blue chip for him, frankly. I was like, I had it there, then I took it away, then I had it there, then I took it away again. Because I was like, prior to the ACL, I would have had him there. Last year coming back, I still had it questionable, but like he didn't show me enough on his return last year for me to say, yeah, he's still in that blue chip tier. I think he can get back there this year, but like I couldn't do it right now. Now, a question I have for you, Marcus, is Greg Dortch. People love Greg Dortch. Yeah, the Dortcher Chamber. I love Greg Dortch. How realistic is the concept of Greg Dortch?
Well, here's what's kind of interesting about Greg. So they don't know where they want to place him on the field. They like to move the receivers around. Even like Marvin Harrison Jr. will take snaps in the slot. And so there will be games where they have him run shorter like routes to the inside. But that's where it's been difficult trying to target him on a consistent basis when it comes to like trying to get the ball to him and Kyler Murray. That's the reason why he sees somebody like Trey McBride as a more effective type of player than it is for Greg Dortch. And also when it comes to blocking is not his specialty. So on a down by down basis, I love the guy. He does have good hands. He can cut on a dime, but in this offense, it almost seems like he gets phased out of it, and then he comes back in, and then he gets phased out again. So it's hard to keep him consistent.
Yeah, that fits with the comment here of he produces when he gets targets and is put in motion, then they ignore him for 5 games because that usage, like you said, sounds inconsistent. You mentioned a little bit about Trey McBride and Tip Ryman. Trey McBride, like we said, struggled to get in the end zone, but man, that dude, he's produced, right? Like the production, I feel like last year hit a new level. Do you think that was mostly due to the Drew Petzing offense? Do you think it was due to him just kind of hitting his stride, or a combination of the both?
I think it was him hitting his stride, because if you watch the later part of the 2022 season with Cliff Kingsbury, where they were trying to, mix in a little bit of under center play action type, like hard play action, not the, the shotgun, like from under center. He was running those Y routes that were like the Y crossing routes that you would see, target like a tight end, and he was smooth. Oh my God. Like, he would catch him in stride. He was just smooth. And there was a couple of good catches that he had in that same formation against the Atlanta Falcons. And it just looked to me like it was so natural to him. I was very excited when they first drafted him, mostly because of the fact that he was coming out as one of the best, not only the best tight end of that year's class, but also he was known to be a good blocking tight end as well. And that's the problem we had as the Cardinals, drafting tight ends, was we went for one or the other. We either got converted wide receivers to play tight end, or we would just get somebody who's just a dedicated blocking tight end. Now, we saw a little bit of that with the tight end we used to have, Max Williams. We saw a little bit of that. He was having himself a good 2021 season, then he got hurt. So to us, we were like, well, let's go and make a trade. We got Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz filled in that void. He himself, had himself a good 2021 season. 2022, we drafted Trey McBride. Trey McBride went off, like, he started out really poorly as a rookie, but he started getting the hang of it. And towards the end of the season, they started trusting him more. Of course, little by little, you saw him just kind of flourish.
So a second ago, our buddy Calvin said for the Cardinals to succeed, it needs to be on defense, not so much offense. And he thinks they can be a good team. I think the defense will be solid, and I disagree a little bit. I think for this team to succeed, it begins and ends with this offensive line group they have here, anchored by Paris Johnson. I really, really like this group here. What are your thoughts on this group, Marcos? What do you think they need to do to really elevate this team, running game, passing game, and how much confidence do you have as a Cardinals fan going into the season looking at this group of guys? Because I really, really like this O-line.
Jonah Williams is the only one that kind of scares me because of his injury history. I kind of didn't like the fact that they signed him for that big of a contract. I would have liked to have gone someone in last year's draft as a right tackle to develop. Other than that, Tejalti Froholt, who is a staple in this offensive line as our center, has been really solid. Paris Johnson, obviously, we drafted him 2 years ago, and he's now showing that he's a Pro Bowl caliber, left tackle, which is what you want when you draft him in the first round. And Evan Brown, solid player. Isaiah Adams, we don't know what's going on with him, and Jonah Williams. So our right side it's kind of iffy. We have no idea what's going to come of that. Our left side, including the center, is really strong. So you will see maybe a lot of rollouts to his left side, maybe better protection going that way, and maybe more run schemes heading to the left side of the formation at the strong side of the formation, because we have no idea what the right side is going to bring us. So if they can figure out the right side of the offensive line, we're going to have ourselves one of the better offensive lines in the league. Not great, but somewhere between 15 to top 10. And I think that's good enough for us as far as like offensive line is concerned.
Yeah, what do you think, Q? I mean, our boy Scott, he doesn't seem like the biggest Arizona fan. Scott usually joins us every week. He's a good guy, but he doesn't seem to like your Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, so with the O line, I think like they have a few guys who I really liked when they drafted him. And Paris Johnson Jr. I liked Isaiah Adams, like where they got him. I thought was right around where his value was. So I thought that was a good pick, and I liked his kind of left-right versatility. I thought that he fit a diverse run scheme. When I'm looking at it, I mean, I feel generally fine with the starting unit, but I do kind of wish that there was a little better depth considering some of the questions like you got to Marcus with Jonah Williams and Isaiah Adams. I wish there was something a bit stronger behind them because of those questions. But one question I have for you with this, Marcus, is I was maybe the highest draft analyst in the world on John Gaines II. Is there a future for him?
Yeah, he was very interesting when we drafted him. I think it was like 2 years ago. He was part of the athletic guard group. I'm not sure. Was he a tackle before we drafted him? I'm not sure.
He played guard and center, I believe. He might have played some tackle, but he was all over that UCLA line.
I see. So he was more of like an interior type of guy. I heard a lot of great things about his athleticism at the very least. So I really see that's why I get excited when we get these developmental players behind, because you never know what you're going to get from them. And I think it was like 2 to 3 years ago, I didn't like the decision of letting go of Josh Jones because he put up a lot of great snaps at the end of the 2022 season, and he was relatively unknown. So you can get that same type of player in at least at this year's rotation with any of these players. And John Gaines is one of those players that I really wanted to keep my eye on because I thought he could be somewhat of a starter or whatnot. So the way it plays out as this organization, if you're not drafting it within the first 2 rounds, or if you're not signed during like out of free agency, you don't seem to get any of those snaps. And I'm not sure if they even know how to develop properly. Now they got themselves a new offensive line coach, so that could change. We never know.
One of the commenters here mentioned Beachum, and I almost forgot about Beachum. Like, what is kind of the story there with him? Because he was your guys' starter for a handful of years there. Do you see him as a reliable swing for you guys, or is he a kind of a guy who's fallen off a step and might just kind of be hanging around as questionable depth?
It's funny because he's like, in my eyes, he's like the most reliable tackle that we've had in the last like 5 or 6 years, because even with having Pro Bowl caliber, all pro caliber tackles and Paris Johnson and somewhat with DJ Humphries, Kelvin Beachum has always been there. And he always constantly ranks in like the 65s, the 70s when it comes to his pass protection. He'll have himself a really good game. He'll have himself a subpar game, but he's been there. And for somebody who almost seemed to be replaced a few years ago for making a comment, he's still on the team. And it's surprising.
What was the comment?
It was about Kyler Murray. A lot of people got upset because he said Kyler Murray needs to grow up as far as being a leader, and people thought that was a shot at him. So the following draft, which was when we took Paris Johnson in the first round, we moved out of getting Will Anderson, which really makes me sad as far as like, because I was the type of guy that wanted Nick Bosa back in 2019. So we have ourselves like this other all pro caliber like defensive end, and we trade out of that spot. Fine. We trade back over to get Paris Johnson at number 6 overall. And I thought to myself, maybe we should have just stayed put, because it's not always the first tackle in the draft that becomes the best. Sometimes it's the second, sometimes the third. Can't argue with the fact that Paris Johnson has now ascended. Anyways, aside from that, Kelvin Beachum is still hanging around the team. Besides everybody wanting, like a lot of Cardinal fans want him off the team.
So, I mean, it seems like Beachum does give you guys some pretty solid depth as a swing tackle. And maybe, I mean, I'm not sure if he can swing inside the guard or not, but generally feel like you can fill in at guard more easily than tackle.
And you got that veteran presence with him as well.
Yeah. So that actually does make me feel quite a bit better about this, especially when this O-line, especially when I think about how much they're going to be running 12 with Tip Raymond in there as a quality blocker. So, I mean, I do feel pretty solid with this O-line. Like you said, not great. Like somewhere in that like 15 to 10 range makes a lot of sense to me, just because they do have some good continuity of the guys who've played with each other as well.
It's funny because I always thought, like, growing up, watching like football leadership was not a big quality with me. I would see articles of people getting signed by the Cardinals. Oh, he brings leadership. He brings leadership. I had no idea what kind of impact that brings until I saw someone like Kelvin Beachum come into this group that was a 2018. They were the worst offensive line in the league. Even PFF ranked them as 32. You start seeing these guys that are like kind of leaders, like Justin Pugh and Kelvin Beachum. They came over, and the young guys around our offensive line, they would start like actually playing with a bit of a chip on their shoulder, but they would try harder. And Kelvin Beachum, you watch him on Hard Knocks, he's one of the coach's favorite players on the team. He's just a good guy.
It's so huge. It's something that I've kind of learned with experience as a Bears fan the last like 2 years. Is just like, and I focus a lot on O-line when I'm watching tape, and it was kind of like, man, it feels like these guys have no direction within their room of how to practice, what to look for, how to analyze their opponents, and what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. And like, it just made me really start to hammer that idea of leadership in the O-line room, especially being something that's really important, because someone needs to set the tone out there. And I don't care if your best O-lineman is a 7th round draft pick. It can't be the guy making 7th round draft pick money who's setting the tone. It just can't. Yeah, it needs to be, they need to demand respect. With that being said, Jay, do you have any other questions on the offense before we kick this thing over to the defense?
No, not really. I like the running back room. We didn't really harp on it too much.
Yeah.
James Conner has been about as consistent as you can hope for running back in today's day and age. And then I thought DeMarcado played pretty well last year whenever he came in, and then hopefully Trey Benson keeps getting better. But yeah, I think you got a pretty solid running back room there, and like we talked about, if that offensive line can get rolling, take some pressure off Kyler, let Marvin Harrison kind of run free a little bit. Definitely some potential here with this offense, I think.
What are the thoughts with Trey Benson, Marcus?
He's kind of weird because he has the speed. He just doesn't have the cut ability, and he's not reading the field as good as he can. I think he's somebody that would play better in a system where he would have his reads done by like a fullback or like a tight end, would basically kind of open up the path for him. So somewhere like in a power scheme,
like a lead blocker, you're saying?
Lead blocker.
He's kind of giving him a cheat sheet there of just like follow me.
Yeah, because he has the speed, it's straight line speed. But his problem was when he would cut left and right on the outside zone, he didn't see the field as well as the other running backs would. He wasn't able to do that quick cut ability. He would take off at full speed, stop himself, and by that time the gap is closed. The gap is gone. So I think his vision does need to get better, but he also needs to work on his reads. Exactly. Just like Dana mentioned right here, is his vision. He had vision issues in college. He's right about that.
Okay, well then let's kick on over to the defense. And this is where I am so intrigued by this defensive line, Marcus. As you can see in the graphic, I don't think there's a single blue chipper on it. But like, they are running a legit, I want to say 3 edge rushers times, so 6 edge rushers plus 4 defensive tackles. You're talking about a 10-man rotation here that I feel like can really garner respect at every level of the rotation, which is such a difference from a year ago and especially 2 years ago. But Marcus, what are you looking at and seeing with this defensive line group?
Well, for the first time, it may seem like we'll be able to stop the run. It's been horrendous for the last, I believe, 7-8 years. The issue was not only paired with scheme, but we didn't have those players that knew how to shed blocks or knew how to hold on to blocks and whatnot, close gaps and whatnot. And we had more of like a blitz on your way to the quarterback type of scheme. So shoot the gaps. Problem with that is that you can get picked off really easily, or you can give up yardage to our linebackers who were just reticent to just stay where they're at and wait for the running back to come to them. Although this group hasn't been any better when it comes to like the scheme, the players themselves have that individual talent to be able to like stop the run. They're just known as run stoppers at the very least. So I have really good confidence that at the very least this year, that's going to be a strength of the team.
And
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about their front and the way they attack the passer? Because it's so every time I watch the Cardinals defense, I feel like I'm mesmerized by it. And I'm like, they're doing this with Dante Stills and Dennis Gardick. And like, they are so confusing to watch. And how do they attack the passer?
Well, they have kind of like a Vic Fangio like type of so their defensive scheme is coming from the Vic Fangio tree, which, as if we know, set the edge hard, use multiple fronts, but for the most part, you have your stud at outside linebackers who's going to be like your alpha to the outside. But one of the major things about this is you need depth at that position because you want to have a better rotation going forward. And that's the reason why before they didn't have that success. Whereas for now, they can get that rotation going. Someone like Dennis Gardick was intriguing as far as pressures are concerned and getting to the quarterback because he had the strength to be able to take on tackles from the bottom up. So He had the speed. He had the ability to leverage himself to be able to push on these tackles and then kind of push him back into the quarterback or at the very least beat them to the outside. That being said, we didn't have enough of those type of players. Zaven Collins is 6'5". He's a taller guy. You may think that's good at that position, but it's not really because he has no development. He has no like
converted linebacker, right?
Yeah, he was an inside linebacker. Now you're trying to convince him or put him in a position where now he has to develop like moves. Like, how do you read a tackle? How do you know he's going to jump set on you? How do you know what he's going to, if he's reading you and he's going to counter what you're going to do? And it comes with like knowing how to, place your hands, knowing when to throw your punch. Because if you don't have any of those type of tricks as an outside linebacker, you're not really going to get to the quarterback. And that's what you get paid to do as an outside linebacker. Now, he's good against the run, but that's because he can hold his blocks. Mm-hmm. That's because he can set the edge really well. And that's because he has some girth. Even as an outside linebacker being 6'5", he's around 270. So he's up there when it comes to like outside linebackers, which is why he doesn't give up any yards to these tight ends or these tackles trying to push him off the line of scrimmage. He's not going to have success when it comes to getting to the quarterback. He doesn't have that trickery. He didn't have like the Hassan Reddick, where Hassan Reddick knew how to be an outside linebacker. He played outside linebacker. He was drafted. They put him at inside linebacker, and that was a mistake. Put him back at outside. He knows his tricks. He knows how to beat with speed. He knows how to beat with counters. He knows how to even beat with power at his size. That's not what Zaven has. Now you have who you just signed in Josh Sweat, who I believe is an above average defensive end or outside linebacker. He's not the best out there, but he's a consistent getter of pressures. He's a consistent sack person. He's going to give you 8 to 10 sacks a season. He's going to give you 60 to 50 pressures a season. That's good enough for the Cardinals room because you want to get a rotation going, and that's exactly what you're going to do. Brand Browning, he's going to be the one that's going to go off if he stays healthy. If he stays healthy, I've seen his tricks. I've seen what he can do. There's a reason why the Denver Broncos were high on him. Of course, didn't develop much. He didn't do much with the Denver Broncos, but they can see the potential there. He's going to be somebody to look forward to. And obviously, you have I forgot what his name was, the rookie. He's the rookie. We drafted him like 2 years ago.
DJ Ojulari.
Ojulari. There you go. Ojulari is the other guy that's going to be the wild card. Health is what plagues these guys, but those are going to be our guys.
Is it so? That was my next question. Actually, was about BJ Ojulari because he was such a such a different edge rusher than the first, being such a bend speed guy, but like wearing that. I think it's number 4 at LSU, or maybe it's 7. I forget what 7. Number 7 at LSU, like being the like leader of the team, like that seems to speak very loudly as to off-field stuff, and a guy who you think is going to develop. Has it been injuries that have held him back more than anything?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the unfortunate thing. I think he missed 4 games his rookie year. He missed all of his sophomore year. So he's going into a third year. People are looking at him to be a breakout candidate for the Cardinals. That's good when you have this type of depth. That's not good if he's like your number 1 pass rusher. He has long arms. That's what I like about him. He has very long arms for his size. he has the leverage advantage because he's kind of like a shorter but long arm type of player.
He
And
can bend and get low while still maintaining the long arm on him and generating that rise in the power, right?
Yeah, he's beating tackles with his punch where he would get into their chest plate. And one of his good sacks that he got back in the 2023 season was him grabbing the chest plate and yanking the tackle down using his own leverage, getting to the quarterback right after that. So he has some talent. That guy has some tricks.
Love that. And then so like other additions they have here, like they got Dalvin Tomlinson. They've had Justin Jones for a year here. Darius Robinson missed a lot of time as a rookie, and then adding Elijah Simmons and Jordan Birch to that group as well as like Calais Campbell on top of Dante Stills. And I don't know much about PJ Mustipher besides him being Sam Mustipher's brother and had some okay tape at Penn State. But how do you feel about the defensive tackle room here?
I'm really high on it. I was very excited to see Calais Campbell come back. Dalvin Tomlinson was a good signing for me because he's a run-stopping type of nose tackle that it's very underrated. I know that they're kind of like disappearing in today's NFL. They're going to make a comeback because, they're needed because the run game is starting to be more prevalent. So you need somebody who's a big space-eating like nose tackle in today's NFL. Even though he's not going to be a high-pressure guy, he's going to be able to get those double teams, or he's going to be our two-gapper.
And then, so where does Darius Robinson fit in the mix here coming off his injuries?
Well, he's supposed to be a penetrator, so high defensive end, like hybrid type of player, somewhat in the same room as like a J.J. Watt. Not like a J.J. Watt talent-wise, but that's what he's supposed to play. He's supposed to play somewhat of a defensive end who's supposed to get you like 10, 11, 12 sacks a season. Obviously, he spent a lot of his time off as a rookie. This is going to be his first full season to be able to start from the very beginning and then show us what he has. The fact that we were able to get him in the first round last year and then have him come along with this room alongside with Walter Nolan, this is a young stud group that we can hope to develop somewhat like an Eagles defense that, you know, they lost all those Pro Bowl players. They were old and they got the new players in, and now they look like they're like one of the best like young teams out there.
No, I mean, I'm just in disbelief about the number of guys they have here that I'm just like, okay, there's something there. There's something there. Like adding Jordan Birch, Elijah Simmons. I've always thought there's something in Dante Stills. Like, obviously it's not super high ceiling, but he's a NFL caliber football player. And I think the key to all that is Walter Nolan becoming what Walter Nolan can become. I saw a clip today of Walter Nolan in camp. It looked like he put on some weight. I'm not sure. Maybe that was just my eyes cheating on me. Is that happening? And where do you think Walter Nolan is from a developmental standpoint coming into the league?
We wouldn't have drafted Walter Nolan if it wasn't for Calais Campbell being on the team. So he wouldn't even been in consideration. So thank God for that. What I'm hoping is this isn't a situation that we had back in, I think it was 2016 or 2017. We got ourselves an Ole Miss defensive tackle, fell to us, and ended up not being the tackle that we wanted. Or the tackle for us. Yeah, Robert Kimdiche. I didn't want to say his name, but yeah, Robert Kimdiche. We don't want to repeat of that. So Walter Nolan, we're gonna see what happens this offseason. I'm really paying attention to his behavior. I don't care about the talent right now. I know he has it. I'm looking to see if he's not going to be one of those players that's just not going to take himself seriously. Even though he was a first round pick, it doesn't mean he was so high in the first round that he's just automatically going to be on the team no matter what. He was picked with the 16th overall pick. Teams passed up on him even though they saw the talent for a reason. So I'm going to be focused more on his outside stuff. I'm going to be focused to see if he's motivated enough. I'm going to be focused more on that and the fact that it seems like he's gaining weight. It's not really a good look for him because I liked him at the size he was. He's supposed to be like an Aaron Donald type of build, just, muscly. He's got some fat on him, but he's not the big, huge defensive tackle. He's just an interior penetrator who's like a game wrecker. That's what I want him to be. So his personality is really going to say a lot.
Yeah, I mean that is, and frankly, when I saw him, I didn't think that it looked like bad mass he'd put on necessarily. It just looks like I was like, oh, he is thicker than he was at Ole Miss type thing, you know. But hopefully, it's not bad mass. But time will tell on that.
Well,
Um,
like I'm hoping it's not like, hey, he's just letting himself go and not hitting the gym or anything like that, or he's like unmotivated.
yeah,
That's what I'm scared of.
Lazy.
I don't know. I'm probably a little blinded by my love of his upside. But like, I mean, man, when I was watching his Ole Miss tape, I was like, I see shades of Jeff Simmons here. And like Jeff Simmons was also a lankier guy coming out of school and like put on that mass in the NFL. Obviously, putting on mass this quickly is really hard to do with it being good mass. But I mean, if that's the case, like that is a step in the right direction in my mind. But because I don't think he's going to lose much by adding good mass because he's so bendy and so athletic. But like I said, we'll see on that.
That's the key word, good mass.
Now, looking at the linebackers outside the outside linebackers, we already included the edge rush outside linebacker types, but the true stack linebackers or the stand up linebackers like Akeem Davis Gaither and Mac Wilson Jr. and you got J.J. Russell and Owen Papo behind them. I learned last week on our AFC South show that I have a significant blind spot for linebackers because every time we got to linebackers, I was kind of like, I don't know. But so what are you thinking with the Cardinals outside linebackers here, Marcus?
I am not excited. Mac Wilson's the only one that I can see myself kind of getting excited for, but this room is just not. It's just not really. How should I say, inspiring? It's going to be like a steady Eddie type of group, unless Akeem Davis Gaither can prove me wrong because he's an athletic guy. He's the type of player that like the Bengals seem kind of like upset that they couldn't retain because they saw a little bit of upside. He's the one that you really do have to pay attention to see if he's going to be a breakout type of candidate. Other than that, there's not much to get excited about, and it's been like this for a couple of years now. And I know people are upset that we didn't keep number 7 of last year. It sucks when I keep forgetting these players.
Kaiser White.
Kaiser White, yep. But there's a reason why they didn't retain him. They didn't retain him because he was the leader. He was the guy that was calling the defense, obviously. But aside from that, that's all he brought. He was a liability in coverage. He wasn't a person who would break the game by getting like a forced fumble or like a interception out of nowhere or anything in that general vicinity where he's changing the play and tricking the quarterback or like paying attention to what he's doing and saying, we're going to change this up at the line of scrimmage, but what he's doing. And then because he changed that play, it changed the direction of that game because they came away with something. So Kaiser White it's just another linebacker that you could just sign and get him somewhere else. I know that people were upset that he's not coming back, but I don't know what they're watching on film because what I watch on film is a person who's a liability. So that's the reason why he wasn't retained. They knew what they were going to get if they retained Kaiser White, but they didn't really replace him with anybody who I was thinking, oh, well, this is going to be a stud in our linebacker group. This guy's going to ascend it. And it's really upsetting because you have Zaven Collins, who's playing at the outside linebacker position, and he's really good at defending the run, but he's not very good when it comes to like get to the quarterback and whatnot. And that's what you want him as an outside linebacker. Put him back at inside linebacker. He had some good upside.
Or at least like the Sam backer or something where he's doing a bit of both, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He was really good in coverage for a person his size, which is insane to say that. Since this organization likes to blitz our linebackers from the second level, he has some comparable speed to other linebackers who are smaller than him, but at 270 pounds. Like, can you imagine somebody coming at you with 270 pounds and you're running back and you're tasked with like check and releasing, and you see this guy running through the A gap because he wasn't getting picked up because they called a blitz last second? He's going to run you over. So why do you want to keep having like a 6'2", 235 pound linebacker that's going to run up that A gap the same speed as your outside linebacker, but he's going to be 230 pounds, and all your running back's going to do is just drop his anchor, come from the bottom up, make the block. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Now, if you said this is more like a Fangio defense, I feel like Vic Fangio has that tendency to go for the lighter backers where it's like because they he wants them to really be able to get depth on the intermediate zones and the underneath zones with all the quarters that they're running behind him. Does that track for you at all? Is Zaven Collins able to do much of that, or is he more of a downhill thumper type?
Funny enough, I was about to search the name of the linebacker that was an All-Pro for the Eagles, because he was like a, there you go, Zach Bond. He was a practice squad player or like a special teamer. Came over to the Eagles and now he became an All-Pro. He's I think he measures like 6'3", 245 pounds, if I'm not. So
something like
Vic
that.
Fangio has always been known for having like the speedier type of linebackers, smaller ones, but he got himself a taller linebacker. He had it with TJ Edwards too. I know that, that was a Jonathan Gannon player, not like a Vic Fangio, but it was talked about that Vic Fangio had his hands on that defense as well. So I believe that in this type of defense, you can really go far with a taller linebacker. This is what I really think. I think they're trying to go away from these taller linebackers because of the whole stain of like getting Isaiah Simmons and getting Zaven Collins, who were taller linebackers. They were fast, they were athletic, but the organization's done with those type of players. They see it as a Steve Keim stench instead of like a Monty. And Monty's going, look, don't worry about that. We're not going to draft them in the first round. We're going to name them in the fifth round. We're going to get smaller guys. We're going to get faster guys, or not faster, but we're going to get smaller guys because they do the job better. And I think that's more of what they're doing. And I think to myself, Monty, just stop doing this. It's okay to have somebody as talented as Zaven Collins play the inside linebacker and show your linebackers up at that position. It's okay. I know that Steve Keim has a tendency for that. That doesn't mean give up on the talent on the player. Put him in the position there where he's best. So who cares if if he becomes an All-Pro, then you look like a genius. But if he's at outside linebacker and he's getting like snap after snap, oh, here's another 4 sacks from Zaven Collins, 30-plus pressures, but he was able to be good against the run. Yeah, he's on one side of the line. Of course he's good against the run. If he's holding down like your tackles on the left side or the right side, he's only affecting one side of the offensive formation. So if I was Monty, move him immediately to inside linebacker, see what he has there at that position, and take advantage of him.
Yeah, so Dana was talking about being high on Cody Simon, and he's kind of the guy that you were just describing as the taller speed guy. I think he was 6'2", 6'3", coming out of Ohio State, about 230 pounds. I think he ran low 4.5 around there. I liked him at Ohio State. I think he's going to definitely have an opportunity in this linebacker room, like Dana was talking about. But I do like the idea of not spending that early capital on him and getting him later on. I think he could fit that scheme, that Fangio style, like you were talking about, and with the depth and everything they have here. I mean, I think a lot of these positions might be a little bit more wide open than they look on paper. So that would be a guy, if I'm a Cardinals fan, I'd be excited about. I'm a big believer in getting winners. They're coming off a national championship. I really like the idea of getting guys coming from winning programs.
You know who won in college?
Will Johnson?
Patrick Mahomes.
Notorious winner. And then we can't forget about our boy back there at safety, Dadrian Taylor Demerson.
The Rabbit.
If you couldn't tell, we are Texas Tech alums. So
yeah, so you guys know a lot about Cliff Kingsbury and stuff, and that air raid like family. That and of course, if you guys are Texas Tech alums, you guys would know a little bit about, like, not so much about Kyler Murray, but you guys would know that those players that shifted around those universities and stuff because they're either disgruntled or they're trying to avoid this program, or they're just trying to go get themselves in an area where they can get themselves to become top tier quarterbacks.
Baker Mayfield.
Yep, Baker Mayfield. There you go.
Love Mr. Baker.
Let's get back to these Cardinals. So, like you got to there, Jay, Will Johnson in this cornerback room. I mean, I felt like you guys got a steal in Garrett Williams the other year with him kind of falling because of the injury. But I was surprised to see that Max Melton is second string now. Did he have a rough rookie year?
No, the organization and the fan base is really high on like Max Melton. I'm not so high on him because I thought we took him as a panic pick and we took him too early. It was, in the draft board, the big board. He went a little bit early, and I think the plan officially was supposed to be Monty was going to pull what he pulled the year before. Trade out of the 30s, get into the 40s, get an extra third rounder, get himself an extra fourth, whatever. But, trade out of those positions, get somebody in the 40s that dropped. So once he did that, we thought to ourselves, well, we want to get ourselves a cornerback, like a really good cornerback. Kool-Aid went, of course, the Eagles, nickel, he went, and Max Melton was kind of the player that was left as that top tier, or one of the top cornerbacks. He was seen as more of a third round pick, but we saw him in the second round at the 40s.
His tape against Marvin Harrison Jr. spoke so loudly that it was like, okay, you could take him in the second and it's fine. That was my opinion, at least.
It was, but the issue with him was he wasn't consistent when it came to his coverage. I think that kind of affected him with the fact that he couldn't dethrone Starling Thomas, because Starling Thomas, he's a cornerback that's holding down that position, but his job is always on the line. If any of these other cornerbacks were to ascend or at least show something, Starling Thomas is going back to the bench. And with the fact that we got Will Johnson in the second round, that really excited me because I knew what Will Johnson's game was. And Will Johnson he's one of those players that doesn't have a long shelf life, but what he's supposed to give you within that shelf life is supposed to be like an all-pro, Pro Bowl type of player. So I'm really excited for him. And obviously, he'll probably end up dethroning Starling Thomas. I don't know what's going to happen with Max Melton. I think if he doesn't show anything this year, it kind of would be a disappointment for the Cardinals fans, knowing that they could have had other players at that position.
Another guy kind of similar to Cody Simon we talked about a second ago, Denzel Burke, another Ohio State guy. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him on the field a little bit this year too. 5'11" guy, 4'5" guy coming from Ohio State. I think he shows some promise there too. I mean, you look all over this defense, and like I mentioned with Cody Simon, I think there's opportunities for young guys, and I think there's a ton of depth here. So, I mean, whatever the final product we end up seeing, I think best case scenario, I mean, this defense is going to be nasty.
I would certainly that's what I'm hedging my bets on this year, is that the defense is gonna play better this year, better than the offense, because of the fact that they're just stacked when it comes to certain positions. Still need to work on that inside linebacker group. The safeties, they're really solid. They're really good at that position. The corners, we're gonna see. But this defensive line is just stacked. It's the most stacked we've had them, and we've had this defensive line since the 2015 season.
Now, is Budda Baker the most important player on this defense?
Yes, I would 100%. He's the most important player. He brings so much when it comes to leadership, but he's the type of player that changes the game dynamic just by existing on the field. He presents so in certain offenses, they have to learn how to attack in a certain way because they know he can run the alley. So if they have to take it for account for him being that player that comes from the third level and trips up your running back in the outside zone, they really get them frustrated because they don't really have account for that player in the third level. They usually have account for the people on the defensive line, the cornerbacks, and then of course your linebackers. But when a safety comes from the third level, he's not accounted for. He's the wild card, and that's what he does so well for this team. And when players see him do that from the third level, or they see him how pumped up and how much he brings as far as his leadership and how he plays at 150%, that really elevates a team just by that alone.
Now, so across from him, Jalen Thompson, I remember on Hard Knocks a few years ago, Jalen Thompson was talked about. I think it was Jalen Thompson was talked about in a really, really bright light. But the Cardinals haven't exactly been a primetime darling the last few years. I haven't caught a ton of their games. outside, like when I'm watching their defense on tape. When I'm watching their defense on tape, I'm so obsessed with the front that I don't end up seeing anything else. Can you tell me a little bit about Jalen Thompson, what his role is?
Well, he was like a darling for the Cardinals ever since he came onto the team in the 2019 season, and that's the season where he dethroned. I'm not sure what the name of the player. I'm not even going to try to remember him. He was our safety that just got completely embarrassed against the Panthers. He got embarrassed so bad that they went ahead and released him the following day. And they didn't really have any answers for who they were going to play at the other side of the safety position. Well, he held that down, and he was really good at being able to come down and cover. He did really well on his deep thirds. He did really well on his deep halves as somebody who, was coming in as a rookie. So ever since then, he would have himself seasons where he would really stack up the tackles. He would drop and get some interceptions on certain plays where they have him coming down from his third to the hook. And he's really good at being able to diagnose those type of throws. So that's the reason why he has more interceptions than Budda Baker does. Budda Baker's the guy who's the battering ram. Jalen Thompson's more of like the radar guy. He knows better. He knows more about reading a quarterback's eyes. And he's a very good tackler as well. So I really like Jalen Thompson. But people want his reign to come to an end because they want to see more of a DTD.
That's what I was going to say. How do we get our guy Rabbit on the field? How do we get Dadrian Taylor Deverson on the field when you already got two strong safeties out there?
Well, it's also a problem that they have somebody like Garrett Williams who's playing the slot. You rotate your safeties and your linebackers and your corners, your slot cornerbacks in that position. Well, you're not going to take Starling Thomas off the field. So somebody like DTD, it's hard for him to even get any snaps because you have like Budda Baker ahead of him. You're not going to say, hey, let's take Budda Baker off the field. Let's go ahead and sit him down and have DTD take over for him. DTD is a very similar player as to a Budda Baker. He's also really good in coverage. What are you going to do? Are you going to take Jalen Thompson off the field? Well, Cardinals fans get excited when Jalen Thompson gets injured because then they see more DTD coming in to develop as that other safety, and he has the game breaking abilities that you would want from like a strong or like a free safety that can force a fumble here and there, or drop into a zone and get an interception. So it's difficult for him, but the only way for him to get there is if Jalen Thompson wasn't on the team anymore.
Yes, there's not much of an opening, even though the talent's there and you want to see it, but there's just not a viable way to make it happen as it's presently sitting, I guess.
Yeah. He can't even get those snaps at slot because Starling Thomas, Garrett Williams is there too.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. Now, Jay, any other questions on the defense?
No, I think we're good there. So whenever you look at this team as a whole, so every year since we started this podcast, we like to zero in on a team that we think is going to outperform expectations. And last year, our team was the Cardinals, and we have 100% success rate with this stuff. So last year we went 11-6 against the spread, 8-9 win total. I think win total last year for the Cardinals was about 4.5, 5.5.
I want to say it was 6 or 6.5.
Yeah, yeah, and we were early on the Cardinals. They won some early games. We were looking good there, but going forward, I think your confidence has to be pretty high. This division is produced nearly half of the NFC champions since the year 2000. So usually a pretty competitive division. Usually you have a pretty good shot to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. So looking ahead this year, we have 8.5 win total here. Playoffs, you have about plus 140, almost a little bit better than even money. Win the division at 4-1, Super Bowl at 42-1. What are the expectations for this team in your opinion, and what would be considered a successful season here? And if you do bet, or if you're familiar with odds or anything, where do you think that some value is here for a future bet on this team?
Well, the issue is going to be the health. So if everybody's healthy, You definitely take the over on this one. I think I predicted him at like an 11-7 season. I'm not sure, getting double-digit wins. At the very least, that should be the expectation. You hit that 10-win mark, you have a successful season. What's going to derail this team is the injuries, just that. Like, if they end up becoming like a 6-win season, 5-win season, it's because they lost a lot of people, they lost a lot of players. But if you have this core remain together, it doesn't matter what they do at quarterback or at offense. If you have this defense play at the way that they're supposed to play, and they have this ball dominant, ball control, like running the ball type of offense, there's no excuse. There's no way you shouldn't be winning more than like less than like 10 games this season. They really do have themselves a good scheme on offense to be able to protect the quarterback. That's the whole reason why we wanted a pro style offense. So Kyler Murray didn't have to drop back and be in the shotgun like 90% of the time and just read the defense on a down by down basis. You didn't have to do that when you have to just turn around, hand it off to your stud running back and let him do the work. So that's my expectation. Blake Murphy, my co-host on the Redbird Reboot, he also had somewhat of like the similar expectation, and we said the same exact thing. The only thing that's going to derail this team and will derail this team is injuries.
Yeah. All right. So we like the over 8.5 here. We're looking at about 10-7, 11-6. I think you can get there, man. I'm a big believer in Kyler Murray. I like these young guys. I love what they're doing with this defense. I love how they attack this draft as well. So I'm looking forward to see what we got out of the Dirty Birds this year. What do you think, Q?
I do too. I mean, if I'm choosing one bet here that I'm taking for the Cardinals, I'm putting some money on them to win the division.
Yeah, 4-1.
10 to 11 wins is possible. We're talking about a division that's very competitive. 10 to 11 wins can win this division because it's so competitive. You're not going to see a team winning 13 games this year in this division, I don't think. So to me, you're getting 4-1 on division. I'll take I will put a little on that.
I'm betting it right now. I think that's what I'm taking. I was looking at some offensive player of the year, maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. or Kyler. But I think I'm going to take that 4-1. 4-1 is pretty good odds for a team with this much talent, especially when you look across the division. Some damn good teams, but if you think they can get to 10 or 11 wins, I think with how tough this division is, 11 wins might get you there because it's going to be a battle from start to finish.
It's one of those like fight to the top of the mountain where we're just like where all teams are just taking each other out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus, if one player on this defense was going to win Defensive Player of the Year, who would it be?
Damn, that's hard. that's pretty tough. Let me think. I think it would be.
So I'll tell you, like my first thought was Budda, and then it was like, a safety. I don't know if a safety is really going to win it. And I was like, I wonder if Baron Browning just has some outrageous odds, and if he could put up like 15 sacks in a random year. But is that outrageous? Is that an outrageous thought?
No, I don't think so. He could have like a Nick Benito type of season where he comes in and like just suddenly out of nowhere he becomes like your lead sack getter and whatnot. And
he's not even available on my list.
All right, so wait till like week 2 and then it will be available.
Let's just say if he gets himself maybe a sack or two in his first 2 games and whatnot, and he like looks good on film, then get yourself excited about the type of season, and maybe he could be our lead sack getter. And I'm not gonna say that he's gonna have a better season than Josh Sweat because Josh Sweat is more consistent, but I like Baron Browning on film. I just do.
I like Baron Browning. You like Baron Browning. I hear other people talking about how much they like Baron Browning, even though the production's not there. I'm just scratching my head like there might be something here more than meets the eye.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He had some. I remember I saw like back-to-back snaps where he just beat the tackle off the edge, and I thought to myself, he's not going to do it again. He's not going to do it again. The very next play, he just does it again. I'm like,
he's taken over some games in his career. Like it's nuts when you look at what his production is versus like his best moments. It's like, okay, I see something.
He's like a film, like you just have to watch like down by down, like all 22 end zone angles on him to be able to actually appreciate what he actually does, because he's not going to show up on the highlight reel. But then you'll see him do some ridiculous stuff to like a tackle, and you're like, oh boy, if he could just finish, like he'd probably be like a consistent 10, 15 sack guy every season if he was to stay healthy and finish.
Yeah, so I got Arizona at 5-1. I got them at plus 4-9, and so I'm taking that, and I have that locked in.
Beautiful. Well, Marcus, any final thoughts you want to say? And make sure to tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find your podcast. I mean, this is our first time having you on, and I'm very impressed by your knowledge of the game and your knowledge of the Cardinals. So, like, we got to get you more followers, buddy. Like, you got to get up there because you're putting out good content.
Well, yeah, it was what was it, like last year we were supposed to do the podcast, and then I kind of like was late to the game and stuff, so I was supposed to jump on it last year, but this year, of course, you can find me on Redbird Reboot with my co-host Blake Murphy 7, and at Pancake Soul. That's where I'm doing most of the work, and as I mentioned, TCR should be taking off with more content, and we should be having like a joint like situation going with that. So just get excited about that, and as always, like where to find us.
All right, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.
All right, thank you. You guys have a good one.
Yes, sir. Also want to give a shout out to Dana sticking around with us for the entire Cardinals preview. Dana was saying that look at Mac Wilson maybe for Defensive Player of the Year.
All right, I'm high on the Cardinals, Jay.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't be our don't sleep on them team, I don't think, because the win total's too high. You can't do it. Like, I think we need to be like under 7.5 win total on the team we pick.
Yeah, but so far I'm thinking Tennessee so far, but
don't tempt me with a good time.